This aircraft is regarded by many as the best Italian bomber of World War II, and it combined a modern design with a traditional wooden structure. We will talk about the CANT Z.1007 Alcione today. So let's jump in and see the history of this aircraft. The story of this aircraft starts in the early 1930s, when the Italian Air Ministry asked Filippo Zapata to return to Italy from France, where he worked for the Blériot Company, and take the chief designer position at the CADA Aviation Division. In the first part of the 1930s, he designed several excellent seaplanes for the company, like the Z501 flying boat, the Z505 prototype, and the Z506 float plane, which was a great transport aircraft and entered service in 1936. He also designed several land planes for CANT, but the earlier designs were not built until the Z1007 and the Z1011, which were both designed in 1935. The new 1007 was based heavily on the earlier Z506 float plane, using similar wooden construction, wing shapes, and fuselage design. It featured a very clean, slim airframe designed to reduce drag as much as possible. In the push for the cleanest airframe possible, the pilots were seated in tandem instead of side by side, and the bombardier position was placed in the wing root instead of the front. The plane used three Isotta Fraschini Asso 11 RC-15 inline engines, producing 830 horsepower each, and made its maiden flight in March 1937. The aircraft showed good flight characteristics, but it was clearly held back by the underpowered engines, which actually was a common problem for the Italian designs of the time. Several different configurations and modifications were tested to improve its performance, the last of them featuring annual radiators, making the prototype look like it used radial engines. The production variants of the Z1007 used the newer Asso 11 RC-40 engines and featured additional aerodynamic improvements, but their performance was still behind the required numbers. These variants had a top speed of 428 km an hour and a service ceiling of 6,650 meters. They featured similar armament to other contemporary designs, with an open dorsal machine gun position on the top and another machine gun at the bottom. This variant had a limited production run of 110 aircraft. Luckily for the design, soon the new Piaggio P11 RC-40 radial engines became available, which produced close to 1,000 horsepower each. Trials with these engines showed big increase in both maximum speed and ceiling, despite the bigger frontal area. The prototype using these engines managed to reach a top speed of 475 km an hour and an altitude of 8,000 meters. Zapata decided to rework the original plans to make better use of the stronger engine, and the Z1007 bis was born. The new aircraft was about 2 meters longer than the original. The new engines and the size increase resulted about 1,000 kilograms more weight, but the larger fuselage allowed for 1,000 kilograms internal bomb load instead of the original 500 kilograms. It also allowed the designer to move the bombardier position from the wing root to the bottom of the aircraft. The plane featured improved defensive armament as well, a Caproni dorsal turret, bigger caliber guns, and also featured under-wing racks for additional bombs. The fuel capacity was also increased by 200 liters. Despite the bigger fuselage, the pilot positions remained the same tandem configuration, slightly offset to the port side to allow passage for the bombardier to his position. The aircraft had an advantage over other designs, as unlike many other Axis bombers, it had a long bomb bay, and it carried the bombs in horizontal position, allowing it to use bigger bombs. The designs which carried the bombs in vertical position, like the SM-79 Sparviero or the Heinkel HG-111, were restricted to use smaller bombs. The plane also had an option to carry 2 torpedoes under the fuselage, but it was never used in this fashion. Though the new aircraft was a more advanced design than its predecessor, it still used the same wooden construction. From this type, 450 were built. At the end of the 1930s, the Regia Aeronautica had big plans to build a force of around 3,000 aircraft by 1940. So they asked for new bomber designs from most bigger Italian manufacturers. Fiat presented their BR-20 and the BGA designs, Caproni their CA-135, Piaggio the P-32 model, CANT their Z-1011, and Breda their 82 design. Some of these proposals failed for one reason or another. Some of them entered service, but only the Savoia-Marchetti SM79 proved to be actually good, with advantages over foreign designs. But this type only entered production and service after a series of lucky events. If you're interested in the history of that aircraft, I have already made a video about it. Check it out. Because most designs proposed to the Air Force failed, including CANT's own Z.1011 twin-engine design, the development of the Z.1007 bis was followed with great interest. In August 1938, 32 units of the new design were ordered, so the model was put into production late 1938, and the first bis model made its maiden flight in June 1939. The test flights of the type were concluded by August at the Guidonia Test Center, and resulted in reports stating the handling of the aircraft being excellent, and the type being even better than the SM-79 Sparviero. They suggested ordering the type into large-scale production, as it was the highest performance bomber available to the Air Force at that time. Even before the 1007 bis started testing, another model, the Z.1007 TER, was proposed, with the sole purpose of setting speed records. General Lavalle liked the idea and ordered one aircraft to be modified for this purpose. The changes to the aircraft were so extensive though that it received a new designation, Z.1015. Later, another design was proposed to use the Z.1007 TER naming, an all-metal version of the type instead of wooden construction, and using the new stronger Alfa Romeo 135 engines, which produced 1,400 horsepower each. The Air Force welcomed this proposal, but again the type was renamed to Z.1015B instead, as it was too different from the Z.1007 design. 32 units were ordered from this type, but the Air Force requested even more changes on the new proposal. The designer thought the requested changes were not worth the effort, and proposed his new twin-engine plane, the Z.1018 instead. The Air Force liked the new design, and the order for the 32 Z.1015B models was converted to this new type instead. So the story of the all-metal version of the Alcione ended before it even started. But later the final version of the plane again was designated to Z.1007 TER, and this one finally stuck. This variant used the conventional construction, but new Piaggio P19 engines, producing 1,150 horsepower each. This was the final variant of the type, arriving in early 1943, and only built in limited numbers. All the different variants of the aircraft might be a bit confusing, so let's do a quick rundown in order. The Z.1007 was the original model, with the shorter fuselage, open machine gun position on the top, and used the Isotta Fraschini ASSO 11 RC-15 engines. The following Z.1007 bis featured the longer, bigger fuselage, upgraded defensive armament, bigger bomb load, and used the Piaggio P11 RC-40 engines, producing 1,000 horsepower each. Later variants featured a new twin-tail, but there's no separate designation for those, and the single and twin-tail designs were used together. The series 1 to 3 used the single tail, and the following ones had the twin-tail design. The Z.1015 was the single model modified for record-breaking flights, using the Alfa Romeo 135 engines. These power plants were problematic though, and the type was put aside until 1942, when it finally flew, but using Piaggio P12 engines. With the new engines, it managed to reach a top speed of 563 km an hour. This variant was the first one mentioned as Z.1007 TER, before it was renamed to Z.1015. The Z.1015B was the proposed all-metal version of the Z.1007 bis, using Alfa Romeo 135 engines. This variant was cancelled before production in favor of the new Z.1018, and it also was mentioned as Z.1007 TER before renamed to Z.1015B. And finally, the real Z.1007 TER, the final production variant, which appeared in 1943 and used the Piaggio P19 RC-45 engines. The Z.1007 bis was 18.35 meters long, with a wingspan of 24.8 meters, roughly comparable in size to the B-26 Marauder or the Heinkel HG-111 bomber. It had an empty weight of 9,396 kilograms and a maximum takeoff weight of 13,621 kilograms. The plane used 3 Piaggio P11 air-cooled radial engines, producing 1000 horsepower each. With these engines, it could reach a maximum speed of 458 km an hour and a cruise speed of 339 km an hour. The plane had a range of 1,795 km and a service ceiling of 7,500 meters. Its defensive armament consisted of two 12.7mm and two 7.7mm machine guns. It could carry 1,200 kg of bombs internally and 1,000 kg externally. It also had the option to carry two 800 kg torpedoes under the fuselage, but it was never used in this configuration. The Z.1007 Alcione was used on every front of the European theatre, though they mostly operated at the Mediterranean. The first 1007s were delivered to the Air Force in May 1939 and formally entered service in early 1940, but these early models were not deemed combat ready and were mainly used for training. At spring 1940, the newer Z.1007 bis models started to arrive to the units. But when Italy entered the war in June, only 4 of these were available at the 47th Stormo, and 31 of the early ASO-powered ones at the 16th Stormo. The first combat action for the Alcione came in August, when 10 of them bombed an airfield on Malta, and they continued to fly attack missions against the island until late 1942. The type also participated in the Battle of Britain, though only 6 of them were sent to Belgium, and they only flew one mission worthy of mention. They were first used in bigger numbers during the invasion of Greece in October 1940, with 60 of these bombers used. During one of the missions over Greece happened an interesting event, when a Greek pilot who already managed to shoot down one of the bombers rammed the tail of another when he ran out of ammo. He managed to perform an emergency landing after the collision, and even arrested the bomber crew after they landed with their parachutes. In the Greek campaign, the weakness of the wooden structure of the planes became evident, as the humidity from the rain distorted it, and they required constant monitoring. They participated in combat actions over Yugoslavia as well in April 1941, and they were also used on the Eastern Front for a short period, but again their wooden construction was not suitable for the climate. After this point, they were mainly used on the Mediterranean, where they participated in the attacks against the British convoys sent to resupply the forces of Malta during Operation Pedestal in August 1942. At the end of the year, they flew missions from Sardinia against the advancing Allied forces in North Africa. After the armistice, most of these planes were captured by the Allies, but the Germans managed to take some 30 of them as well. The re-established Italian Air Force used the type against the Germans in some missions, and they flew air support over the Balkans until the end of the war. The Z.1007 Alcione was maybe the best Italian bomber of World War II, but since they were used in smaller numbers than other types, and after a while mainly at night attack missions, they are not as well documented as some other aircraft. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.